What the story, guys? It's the day after the night before, as I like to call it, the fallout from the referendum results. Now, I ended up trawling all the podcasts and clips and shows that I missed when I was actually listening to the ones on the day, just to try and get caught up to what the mainstream media in Ireland was doing on average over it. There was some unusual things. If you look at sites like News Talk and Today FM, they would have been fulsome in favour of the referendum, and they had very sparse coverage the next day with the results. I mean, to give you a comparison, you'd be talking about maybe items that were 5 minutes long or 6 minutes long, compared to something like that was going on in drive time that was analysing the fallout from it. That was half an hour long. So whilst I'm prone to slag off RT, I will at least give them credit for doing the most after referendum coverage of the mainstream stations. As I said, News Talk, Today FM, they kind of ran a mile from it, and they knew they had to report on it, but it was very, very sparse. That said, they are still in chronic denial. The main push seems to be that the people have made a mistake and their position of wanting to get rid of the legislation was the correct stance to take. So once again, you were still getting comments about how it was possible that the far right was behind all this, which had me falling in bits of laughter, because what they were basically trying to say was that if you look at working class areas, single mothers in, say, Tala, in, say, Cherry Orchard and Ballyfermot, who voted 93 to 96% of this legislation, according to the guys in RTE, seem to be all far-right, conservative Catholics in actuality. Methinks something does not compute there. So the salt was flowing. I think my favourite item was a small section of the Claire Byrne show, where she ended up in a spat with Ronan Mullins. And it neatly summed up the problem we have with the Irish media. She basically said that it's agreed by everyone that the sexist language needs to go. To which Ronan Mullins poleaxed her with simply 2 words. According to whom? She was literally left flabbergasted. She was ranging about trying to find some defence of it. But there was no greater indication of the echo chamber in the media than the fact that she couldn't immediately answer why. She ranged about to find something about some, I think a poll that said 85% of people wanted that language removed. But that just flies against the fact that literally the day before, the referendum were beaten by the percentage that the polling company said it was supposed to be won by. Neatly illustrating the uselessness of that feckin' profession. It was only a small bit, but to see the sheer panic in her voice, and then the way she immediately shut down any discussion about how possibly the media could be biased in this whole regard, was hilarious to see. We then, of course, had the political fallout. Lisa Chambers, the head of the Senate, said that she voted no, despite the fact that she actually campaigned for yes. She actually said that she didn't, but then it came up on Twitter, there was pictures of her on Grafton Street giving out yes material. And then, showing no self-awareness whatsoever, said that, yes, she was going to vote yes, but then she saw the Attorney General's opinion on the matter and decided to vote no. Now, this is the same opinion the public weren't allowed to see until it leaked the night before the referendum itself. Mother of God, that girl couldn't have been more privileged if she tried. She's getting major flack for this, and it seems a move that's not so much stabbing Micheál Martin in the back as randomly stabbing him in the front. We then had the fantastic sight of Willie O'Dea, of all people, coming on the national airwaves to say that Fianna Fáil has lost touch with its roots. It needs to stop indulging in all this woke nonsense, and the first thing it needs to do, which really made me laugh, was get rid of the hate speech legislation. He too was a no. And a lot of people are getting a great laugh out of this and wondering just how many people in government actually voted yes for this thing. I think probably the most disappointing coverage, though, was in the late debate, which I think is done by Cormac O'Hara. You know, like, he's really good as an interviewer. Like, he gives both barrels to both sides, and it makes very entertaining listening to it. And his show is predominantly political, so I was really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, there's only 5 minutes on the subject. The rest of it seemed to be dedicated to AI for some reason. I can't help wondering if that's just because they really had intended to try and get an actual debate on this, and they just couldn't find anything. Because that was one of the more interesting revelations over this whole affair. After the referendum, RT reached out for political commentators and party members and TDs to come in and talk about it, and they couldn't find anyone. They all went to ground. The 5-minute section in the late debate seemed to be between Shinner and Fine Gael. The Fine Gael perfectly admitted that he voted yes. So he probably lives in Dunleary. The most interesting thing to come out of it, though, was the Shinner's acknowledgement that if they were in power, Sinn Féin would not rerun this again. That shows to me that that was a massive solar run by Mary Lou. And while certain members of the Chatterati might liken the fact that she got called up on that and heckled during the day, that girl that did heckle her turned out to be representative of the country, because they walked that back quick sharp. There is not going to be a rerun of these referenda. They're not going to do a Lease in Lisbon on us. The interesting thing is, though, it does look to be a solo run. It does look like they didn't go to their party membership to come up with this decision. So that really does lead you to ask questions about where the shinners are going to go down the road in terms of what they do with policy. But to see a vote face like that clearly indicates that the vast majority of people turned against them. Because this, by the way, was actually one of the more interesting things. There was an exit poll done by the Sunday Independent, and it was asking people what way they voted and what party they voted for. And while if you're a Fine Gaeler or a Green, you can kind of rest a little bit easy. You might lose half your support, but you'll keep most of them and maybe the majority of your party. But Sinn Féin, 88% of their supporters voted against this. Fianna Fáil, I think 77% of their party members voted against. The Independent, 90% of people voted against it. So if you were one of those members in Dáil Éireann and you were seeing these results, you were knowing that you are working against the population of the country, the vast majority of your voting base, if you were actually voting yes, yes. That's the type of thing that puts the fear of God of politicians, because that actually affects them in the wage packet and whether they actually get elected or not. And that's why I think when you've seen from Willie O'D that he was out there saying that we need to get shot of hate speech legislation, we need to possibly put the assisted suicide legislation on hold, as all the polling companies, all the focus groups, all the NGOs that they talk to, all got it wrong. So they're really being looked at sources that you just can't trust anymore. And it really illustrates just how many of our political parties have lost touch with the grassroots, with the come-ons, with the basic sources of information they used to get in order to get intelligence on the ground. It's 5 days since the referendum. There still seems to be more to come out. I'm actually really looking forward to see what could happen around, because this does seem to be a very seismic shock to the body politic. I think the media class themselves are really embarrassed now that they've been shown to be looking to be one big massive echo chamber of people who just all talk to themselves. Because that was one of the other things that really stood out. I mean, if you look at people like Mullins from the Iona Institute, Mary Steen, even McDougall himself, you could almost see the political class holding their nose as they were interviewing these people, as they put forward the positions. But the truth is, if they didn't turn up, the media class itself would have nobody to speak for the no side. We are literally this close to not being able to fulfill the balance remit in broadcasting. And that's a disaster for media. I mean, there is serious structural problems in the place now. They've been attacking government, they've been attacking NGOs and the like for the results that came out, but they seriously know themselves that they had a part to play in this. And whilst this is nothing new, if you catch your mind back to the citizen referendum, I remember listening to Sean Moncrief show, and everybody back then was telling us it was a 50-50 two-horse race that's too close to call. And then 8 out of 10 people voted in favour of it. But the sheer scale of it now, the sheer capturedness of the body media by basically political activists, they're not journalists anymore, has got to the degree where they're really incapable of doing their jobs. So I'm enjoying the salt from this. I look forward to see what's going to happen this week, and I'll get back onto you guys with more over here anymore. Take care.